Hey everyone, time for another video game review. This time I'm going to go over Valkyria Chronicles. Originally an early PS3 exclusive, it unexpectedly made its way to the PC. I played the PS3 version a few years back, but this review will be specifically about the PC version, which was released on Remembrance Day 2014. The PC version is a Steam exclusive, which is too bad. A DRM-free physical release would have been ideal, but I guess one shouldn't expect these kinds of things these days. If you don't know much about the game, Valkyria Chronicles is an alternate reality World War II strategy RPG. Two superpowers, the Federation and the Empire, are at war over a mineral called Ragnite. Ragnite looks like a glowing blue stone, and it's used as a fuel and as a power source. In addition, it also possesses healing abilities. Unfortunately for our main characters, the Empire, also known as the Imperials, decide to invade their neutral country of Gallia in order to get a hold of its Ragnite. Our main characters, Welkin and Alicia, both hail from the small town of Brule, which gets attacked and occupied early in the game. Eventually, they both find themselves part of Gallia's militia, with Welkin commanding his very own squad, called Squad 7. The game itself looks incredible. It's like a moving watercolor painting. I'm very fond of the art style and visuals. It looks especially excellent on the PC, but I'm going to touch on and fondle that later in the review. Now that you know about the game's basic premise, let's get into the gameplay. The menu is laid out like a book, which I like. This is where you select the cutscenes and missions. Before starting a mission, you'll be given a briefing on the objectives. Missions mostly involve you having to occupy a certain base camp, reaching a certain destination, or defeating a boss character or vehicle. The losing conditions are usually the same. Don't let your tank, called the Edelweiss, be destroyed, and don't let the enemy take over your base camp. You also get to choose where your units deploy, though some characters' positions are predetermined depending on the mission. Gameplay is turn-based, but it has some real-time elements as well. In the tactical overhead view, you select which unit you want to control. When selecting that unit, you control that unit from a third-person perspective. You can move around now and engage the opposition. You can also get shot at when you get too close. Units use AP, which can be seen on the top left. Foot units use up 1, while tanks will use up to 2. If you select the same unit again, you'll notice that you won't be able to run as far as the first time. Your turn ends once you run out of AP, or if you end it manually. You can also use orders, which also use up AP. Once you've used up all your AP, or ended your turn manually, it's the opposition's turn. You won't be able to see the enemy units on your map if they aren't in your field of view, but you can get a rough idea of where they are. In order to succeed in Valkyria Chronicles, you'll have to learn how and when to use units of different classes. You have 5 classes of units to choose from. They are Scouts, Shock Troopers, Lancers, Engineers, and Snipers. Additionally, you've also got a tank. Scouts are the most mobile of all the classes. They can see the farthest, they have really long range, and can move around the most. They're armed with rifles, but the small magazine is a handicap. They're really effective for scoping out the battlefield and looking for enemies. They can take out foot soldiers pretty well if you aim at the head. Thankfully, their shooting is quite precise. They're a bit fragile, so be careful. Shock troopers carry machine guns and are best suited in disposing foot units and attacking and defending base camps. They can't run as far as scouts though. Lancers are armed with rocket launchers and best put to use against tanks and vehicles. They are well armored and can endure grenades and bullets quite well. They can't counterattack or shoot at moving enemies though. You can also arm them with mortars, but I've actually never done that before. Engineers are there to fix up your tanks, resupply foot units with grenades and ammo, remove mines, and repair things like sandbags that have been blown up or driven over. In a way, they're similar to scouts, but it's best not to have them engage the enemy if possible. Snipers are the most vulnerable of all. They can't shoot at moving enemy units, neither can they counterattack. They can barely move at all, plus they only have a small amount of ammunition. It's best to place them behind your troops, maybe in a tower, or behind some sandbags. Despite having all these shortcomings, you'll be using snipers a lot. Vulcan's tank, called the A device, is a strategic device you'll rely upon on almost every mission. Not only does it boast the most firepower, but it serves as a shield for your own soldiers. Remember not to expose your tank's rear, as that is its weak spot. Further into the story, you'll be getting a second smaller tank called the Shamrock. Valkyria Chronicles keeps things interesting and forces you to change your approach for each mission. Sometimes you'll even have the objective change on you in the middle of battle. As you complete more missions, you'll earn money and experience points, which you can use to level up your classes, develop better weapons, and modify your tanks. I like how the game handles leveling up. You decide which class you want to spend experience points on, and all characters within that class level up. Once you get past level 10, your classes become elites and unlock some new abilities. Elite scouts, for example, get the ability to use grenade launchers, and elite troopers can use flamethrowers. Most units are able to run longer distances as well. A thing that's pretty cool is that you get to decide which characters you want to recruit. It's fun how all the characters look different, have different voices, and say different things. It feels like every character has a real personality, which is great. Each character has different strengths and weaknesses, which are called potentials. These potentials activate in certain conditions. For example, for Alicia, her country bred potential enables her to shoot more accurately when standing on dirt, whereas Edie's panicky potential makes her attack power decrease when charging towards a bunch of enemy units. Also, characters like being around some characters more than others, so it's a good idea to try and keep them together. Characters unlock more potential as their class levels up. Be careful if you've grown attached to some of the characters, because if they get downed and you don't get to them in time, or the enemy reaches them first, they'll die permanently. Unless they are a main character, in which case they'll just retreat for the rest of the mission. You can also further customize your squad once you develop more weapons. Eventually, development of guns splits off into 2 or 3 branches. Each focuses on a different aspect, whether it be accuracy and range, firepower, or inflicting status ailments. You'll also unlock some Imperial weapons that you get by defeating certain strong characters. You can give different characters different weapons to suit their strengths. Or just give your favorite characters the best guns. That's what I do. If you want to step away from the main story a bit, you can also unlock some reports. Reports are little side events that take place between chapters and are supposed to give the players a little insight into some of the characters.
You mocking the power of vegetables?
The side missions often have unique objectives, giving you a little gameplay variety. You can also play skirmish maps, which are based on missions already completed in story mode, with some alterations. You don't get to replay the actual story missions until after you finish the game. The PC version gets all the DLCs from the PS3 version. First is the EX Hard mode, which adds 2 extra difficulty levels for skirmishes. Second is a side campaign following Edie and a few other Squad 7 soldiers who get separated from the squad, called Enter the Edie Detachment. Third is another side campaign following Salvaria, called Behind Her Blue Flames. You actually get to play as the Imperials, which is pretty cool. The fourth bit of DLC are the Edie Detachment challenges, which gives you extra skirmishes to complete. The nice thing about Valkyria Chronicles is that the excellent gameplay is accompanied with an excellent story. There are lots of references towards events that happened in World War I and World War II, and it touches on a lot of topics typical war games don't even talk about. For example, I like how not everyone on the opposing side is portrayed as evil, and not all people on the Gallian side are morally good either. The game does a great job of exploring moral issues of both sides of the war. What makes Valkyria Chronicles so engaging is that the world is very thought out. With so much attention to detail given to pretty much every aspect of the game, I have to say that the sound design could have been better. Explosions could have sounded much better. Dynamic range is sadly also lacking. The music, on the other hand, is very good. If you prefer sub over dub, you can switch the voice acting to Japanese. I have no problem with either, but for this review I left it on English most of the time. Whichever language you choose, both sides feature accomplished voice actors whose work you've likely heard somewhere before. Let's go over some PC-specific stuff now. The PS3 version was stuck at 720p and 30 frames per second. The PC version has none of these restrictions, so you can crank the resolution up as much as your monitor and PC can handle. Plus, there's no frame rate cap. This review is all in 30 FPS because I don't have the equipment to record at 60 FPS at resolutions over 720p. If you want to see how the game looks at 60 frames per second, look at my comparison video on my channel. The game is locked to a 16:9 aspect ratio. My monitor's resolution is 1680 by 1050, which is 16:10, so I get little black bars on the top and bottoms. Not too bad, but I could live without that. Cutscenes are locked down to 720p at 30 frames per second. Occasionally, the cutscenes stutter, which is too bad. Not sure why that happens, as the gameplay is consistently 60 FPS on my computer. Valkyria Chronicles is one of my favorite games of all time. I never expected it to be released on the PC, especially after it sold so incredibly poorly back as a PS3 exclusive. I couldn't recommend the game more. It's excellent on either system, but the PC version is just so freaking awesome, running at high resolution and 60 FPS. I'm running the game on my gaming computer, but I heard that Valkyria Chronicles behaves quite well with even modest computers, so I would urge people to give the PC version a try. And that's the end of my review. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and comment. If you really liked it, please subscribe as well. Take it easy and see you next time.